Apparently last time they had problems with the sound. This one has enabled closed captioning.
I don't hear them.
We're not muted anymore.
Yeah, because I clicked that off.
But I don't think it's as bad as it sounded.
It just came on this.
I know it's intentional. Okay. Come on, there we go. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. In 1986, my wife and I got married, we lived in Austin, Texas. We got a pair of binoculars as a burning present or a wedding present. We did a tiny bit of burning with a relative. And then on January 1st, 1989, that's the exact date, I said to my wife, let's try this as a hobby. And the rest, all of these stories I'm going to tell you are true. And the names have not been changed to prevent me from being embarrassed. So the first thing we do,
There you go. So you got to point it at me.
point at you,
So I point it towards the computer.
okay? No, I don't have anything.
All right, that's unique. Did you pick the reverse by accident?
Oh, there we go.
All right,
Okay, so we go to a pond in Austin, Texas, and we say, wow, we got ducks. These are obviously ducks. They swim in the brook. So they're ducks. So I say, we're going to be a black duck. So I have a black duck. So I pull out my handy dandy field guide, which was a golden guide from 1980s, and I look at black duck. And sure enough, there's a black duck in it. I go to the page excitedly, and it doesn't look anything like this. Okay, maybe this is a white nosed duck. I look at, okay, finally, it goes through the entire list of ducks in the book. It's not there. So I said to my wife, this must be a rare duck from Mexico. And she says, there's 30 of them. I go, oh yeah. We go around the corner, and we find this one. We find this, really. It looked like this. Now, we weren't that close to it. The duck didn't come up. Did this duck commit suicide? We actually considered that. Ducks fly, ducks get shot by hunters, ducks swim. Ducks don't dive under the water. We had no idea. So I look in the book again. I go through the entire list of ducks in the book. It's not there. So you know, I said, I better study this book. I go through the book. I go. It's the pound that started. I found it's supposed to die suicide. You know, we felt much better after that. 5 minutes later, I came back again. The other one's in the real family. It doesn't speak even though it looks like a duck. That was our start. Next day, or shortly thereafter, we go out to Prescott State Park. And now birds make noise. I never thought of a bird as singing back in those days. A bird made noise, and this is to tell you that's where the bird is. So you hear the bird. So we hear this noise. Okay, that's interesting. We go there and find those mockingbird. Then we hear a totally different sound. We go through briars and prickers to get to the next bird, and it's a northern cardinal. And then we hear a totally different sound. My wife's good at these totally different sounds. We go through the briars again. It's a mockingbird. Right. We hear a totally different song again. It's an northern cardinal. And it's totally different Texas in the winter time. And I said, no, this hobby's a lot harder than I thought. The songs of these birds, and not only that, some of these birds sing 100 songs. Give me a break here. Now, birds fly. Now, if you cannot identify a bird's flight. So why would I look at the bird that's flying, you ask? I'm glad you asked that. You ask that because the bird might land and become a bird, and then you can look at it. So we don't then switch to the plant. They're flying as soon as they land, we're going to identify them. 6 hours later, they really swallow, and they're like 6 or 7 feet to swallow there. They don't land. They eat water and flying. So not only do I have to know bird songs, I have to be able to identify a bird's flight. This hobby is getting tougher every minute. Okay, we have a green yard. Now we bought our first house in Austin, Texas. It was just in a neighborhood, $10 million for birding. Ever since then, we bought a yard with the house came with. But this first one was just there. So we had garter birds, starlings, and house sparrows, and we had what we identified as a white-winged dove. We look at the bird book, not supposed to be in Austin, Texas. Wow. We were absolutely 100% sure it was the white-winged dove. We saw it fly, we saw it sit, we saw it a couple days in a row. So we look up the president of Travis Hall outside, and we got a call. We've got a white-winged dove in the yard. We called it out about a couple days. Finally, the guy called it back and said, white-winged doves are expanding their range, they're common in Austin. And our first red back sighting was shot. We tried. We go out to the west of Austin a little bit, and I see this bird on like a barbed wire fence sort of thing. Oh, that's a kingbird. What do? I immediately put my binoculars down. I immediately look at the bird and I look for kingbirds. I said, yeah, it's a kingbird. And I go along with it. There could be 2 kingbirds there. There could be a western kingbird. There could be a Cassin's kingbird. And I said, yeah, we're supposed to look for 1 out of tail feathers. Look at this bird, see way out of tail feathers. All rounds make, and we made it a number of times. You should study thoroughly before you look in the bird book. Okay, we learned that. We see a woodpecker. Okay, we're not going to. We are going to study this bird. I got my binoculars on and we're looking at it carefully. I say it's got dark here, it's got louder here, got this here, it's got that there. Finally, the bird flies away, as they all do, of course. And then we look at the book, and I look at it and I say, oh, this is the Nuttall's woodpecker, which is the one on the right. Now, obviously the guy says those woodpecker are only on the California coast, and I'm in West Boston. So logically, it would be allowed to woodpecker, but I was 100% convinced that it was no woodpecker. It was darker on the back, it hit darker on the face. Maybe it was bad light, who knows? Anyway, I'm lucky eBird didn't exist then. I'd have probably reported a woodpecker and gotten laughed out of town. Anyway, we decided we didn't know, we couldn't call it a ladderback. Young birders, new birders, I wasn't young at the time, I was in my 40s, but new birders don't always look for exactly the right field line. There you go. So then we go to High Island, Texas. The greatest burning spot in all of North America. Now, the center of High Island is kind of a circular area. It has like 5 trails going on. So we walk into the center there, and there is this bird, or like this anyway, sitting up there, just sitting, not moving a muscle really. And we say, okay, that's a flycatcher. We have no idea what flycatcher that is. And this guy comes along with his buddy, and he's telling his buddy that this is a trails flycatcher because of this, and this. We got trails flycatcher on our life list. He saw it well enough for us to count it, you see. So we went on the trail, we come back an hour later, the bird is still sitting there, has not moved. You have to understand, this bird is flown across the entire Gulf of Mexico. It is not singing, it is not moving, it is dead tired, it is resting. Still sitting in the same spot, and this other guy comes along with a little group of people, and he's explaining to them why it's a least flycatcher. Then it's got this and this and this and this. So now, which do we believe? We believe the first guy or the second guy, because we know that this is the same bird. We go off, we burn for an hour, we come back, it's high noon, the sun is coming down, the bird looks a lot brighter, but it's the same bird, and this guy is telling his girlfriend why it's an Acadian flycatcher. So we go home, not having any clue which one of these birds it was, if any of them, but these people got 3 different white birds out of that bird. If we had one. Now, Big Bend is desolate. Our first trip to Big Bend was like on June the 1st.
Oh, yeah.
And we drive all the way out to Boston, and we drive straight down to Rio Grande Village, which is sea level 0. It is 131 degrees. The peanut butter jar pouring out like liquid. Of course, everyone knows that you don't go down to Rio Grande Village except at dawn. You go up into the Chisos Mountains first. We eventually made it up into the Chisos Mountains. Had a great trip. We saw roadrunners a lot. Our favorite hummingbird, which is the blue-throated hummingbird. Toledo warblers up in the Chisos, and we had our own pet Lucifer hummingbird. There's a agave plant right next to where we were camping. He spent the entire 3 days there with us, but you have to learn when to go to which part. Just like in Arizona, everything is elevation. So finally, I said, well, I need to buy a stove. Now, I was much cheaper then than I am now. And if you know me, well, that's a very significant statement. And so I bought a Spacemaster telescope with the bottom of the line scopes, a tripod. The scope comes in the mail. It's June. We are excited. We have the scope. We rush out to Hornsby Bend sewage ponds, which is the best birding spot in Austin, because sewage ponds are always the best places to go. And there is not one bird at all. No swallows, no ducks, no anything. We looked at this through our scope. Obviously, you have to know when to. We had a scope for 3 months, I think, before we ever saw a bird in it. Crazy. Whoops.
You mean to move you?
I didn't hit the right button already. It's up there.
Okay.
Try the next one. There we go. Now, as the introduction told you, I was in the Army. After I got out of the Army in Texas, I still in the National Guard. I had duty down in South Texas, not the Verde Valley, but just south of San Antonio. And we had common nighthawks. My wife worked at a hospital. She'd come out at night. The common nighthawks would be flying around the lamps there. Pretty easy to see, easy to tell. Great birds, one of her favorite birds. So I'm down South Texas, and we're on this night maneuver. Army does stupid things. And here's these nighthawks flying at eye level. You practically have to duck to get out of the way of them. And they're not making a sound. I thought, well, that's pretty weird for common nighthawks. It was like 3 months later when somebody told me, "You idiot, those were lesser nighthawks." I didn't study them well enough. What did he have? Okay. In 1989-90, the birding community, for those of you who go back that far, was much more sexist than it is now. It's probably still sexist now. Every person that ran a rare bird alert back in the 90s, there was no rebird, was a guy. And anytime a woman reported something, it was probably not really believed. So this lady, south of Fort Worth, Texas, calls the Fort Worth Rare Bird Alert and says, "I have a common red pole at my feeders with a goldfinch." The guy that ran the Rare Bird Alert automatically assumed she had a house finch, didn't know anything, he blows it off. 2 days later, she calls again. There's never been a common red pole in Texas ever at that point. And he blows it off again. She calls a third time. Finally, I said, "I have to do today. I'll drive the 50 miles down there. I'll take a look." He goes down there, and of course, there's a common red pole, first Texas record in the yard, and he had egg on his face for that. Sure, but that's the way birding was back in those days. So we decided there was some dinosaur place you could go to up there. We would go see the dinosaur thing, and we would go look at the rare bird. And we go to her house, and we go into the big living room there, look out the glass window. There's the red pole sitting right there on the feeders. Easiest chase in history. We thought chasing rare bird was easy. And we get a comeuppance later on from that. But that was case, and that was certainly a good one. Now, I traveled on business. I gave speeches all over the country for Texaco. And we go to Colorado. And my wife reads in this book, if you go to Rocky Mountain National Park, you hold peanut up, Ray J will come to the peanut. So we get into Denver early in the day. It's 75 degrees in Denver. I'm dressed like this. Let's go to Rocky Mountain National Park. We stop. Maybe we drop stuff off in the hotel. I don't remember. Anyway, we drive up to whatever the elevation is, 10,000 feet or something like that, and there's 12 feet of snow along the parking lot. The bathroom is completely covered in snow. You can barely see the roof on the bathroom, and it is obviously freezing. And my wife says, "Okay, I'm going to do this anyway." She gets out of the car, dressed about like this, and holds up peanuts, and sure enough, out of there, 2 gray jays, which are now called Canada jays. They change the names of birds all the time so that you have to buy a new bird book. Now, I don't know, because you have apps now, but aren't they? So I'm not sure how they're going to do that in the future. Anyway, we saw our light gray jays there, and we also got a smart nutcracker as we froze to death, clearly totally misleading the weather 100%. Now, birds have to go to crazy places. I gave a speech in Seattle, so we went down really looking for whitetail ptarmigan. Now this is the opposite. We had every coat on that we owned. It turned out to be like 70 degrees up on the mountain. We've got them wrapped around ourselves. We're trudging down the mountain, unhappy. We did not see a ptarmigan at all. And this lady, right near the bottom, "Oh, you're birders. You know what that chicken bird was?" My leg. Let me tell you, we're lucky that her body has never been found. Just kidding, of course, but let me tell you, we felt like it. If you ever do somebody, and this was somebody, this was totally unfair. We had spent 8 or 9 hours on Mount Rainier suffering and walking and way too hot, not seeing a ptarmigan, and this person without pair binoculars who thought it was a chicken gets to see ptarmigan, and is not fair. So I went to beach in Detroit in late February, and we drove up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan on purpose. What is the crazy thing? Every day, 4 days, seems like a week. Every day the temperature started at 5 below, got up to about 5 or 10 above. So it was way too cold to snow. We would drive around in this red car with the heat cranked completely, jump out of the car for probably all of 15 seconds. We saw a gray owl, we saw a snowy owl, few of them actually. We saw a hawk owl, and this is the only sharp, this is not the actual picture. All of these pictures are stolen from the internet. I suck at photography. But the only sharp-tailed grouse we have ever seen in our entire life was in a tree, just like that in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So it was a very good trip. We get back on the plane to go down south, and the young person to me and said, "Thank you for taking me to northern Michigan. Thank you for bringing me back to Texas." It was brutal. Now, if you're going to be a listener, you got to do pelagics. Now, pelagics off the west coast, you see a ton of birds. Pelagics off the east coast, you see quite a few birds. Pelagics off the Gulf Coast, you yell bird. So we do this pelagic trip. We say, "I'll try this." We get down there to Rockport, Corpus Christi, whatever it was. Take a boat out, and it was good. We had like 3 live birds that day. On the left, we have masked booby, which is pretty good for Texas. Audubon shearwater, very good for Texas. Bridal tern, very good for Texas. And then the boat turned around, the weather changed, and we threw up for 5 hours on the way back. But it was, I mean, this is one of these, how much can we pay for a helicopter to get us off the boat kind of thing? So obviously, we're never going to take a pelagic trip ever again. I'm sure we had that thought for 5 straight hours. Then you get off the boat and you walk on the ground, and you're all of a sudden you feel like a human being again. And now you start thinking, gee, we saw some pretty good birds. Now my wife says we do cruise ship birding. You can do great pelagic trips from a cruise ship. So pelagic trips are something. And when you go to your lister, you have a jinx bird. The definition of a jinx bird is simple. It is a bird that every see that you have. And it's a bird you will look for 2 or 3 or 4 times and miss it. So our first jinx bird in Texas was red-breasted nuthatch, which we saw today up on the Mingus Mountain. We had gone to 2 or 3 houses. It's kind of an eruption species in Texas a little bit. We never found the bird. Finally, somebody has it. We rushed to their house. We get red-breasted nuthatch, high fives all over. Later that year, we did a trip to the Guadalupe Mountains. Later in the year, saw 100 of them. It's just the way it goes. You really need to know what birds to go after and what birds not to. Now, our first trip to the Verde Valley was playing this guy said, "We're going to the Verde Valley. It's one of the great places in North America to bird. Let's go do that." And it turned out Nanette was on call at the hospital. She's a nuclear medicine tech for a nuclear family. And so I went down with this other guy, and she flew down 2 days later. There's a bird, a crane hawk, the only crane hawk ever in North America, had been reported down there. We get down there, I find the crane hawk. We see lots of other birds. Nanette comes down 2 days later. I'm excited to show her all of these great birds. We showed her green jays, great kiskadee flycatcher, Altamira oriole, plain chachalakas, and a bunch of more birds. So we don't sell a crane hawk. Now, I don't actually know if the crane hawk was born or if I screwed up. I'm not even sure I can ever figure that out. Maybe Ebert can tell me that. But nevertheless, that's kind of a divorce where she never let me put that down. Now, we've been married for 36 years, so definitely a divorce bird. And on a cruise ship, she found a Hornby storm petrel when I was standing 2 feet from her, and I never saw the bird. But she's got one of her own now that takes some of the sting out of it. But if you're born with a couple, there's going to be a time when one sees a bird and the other doesn't. Now, you always have bad luck stories. And I think you have many more bad luck stories than good luck stories. Maybe that's just the way you remember things. I'm not sure. Our first trip to Florida, I called a wind boat on Florida. I was really good at Florida. But you always go for the birds first. If you're going to keep lists and look for birds. That is a great rule to follow. Always go for the rare birds first. So I called a rare bird, and about a month ahead of what we were going, says the Bahamas swallow has returned to the same bridge in Miami for the 7th year in a row. 7th, they were 6. Wow, this is going to be the easiest life bird in history. Under the same bridge for 6 or 7 years, whatever it was. You know, we get on a plane, I checked the day before, we get on a plane, we fly to Florida, we go off the plane, and we're waiting for luggage, and I call the rare bird alert just to see if something else was around, because that's the way I did things back then. And the first line on the rare bird alert was, the Bahamas swallow was found dead under the bridge this morning, having been hit by a vehicle. By again after 6 or 7 years. I have a few more of those stories in the last 30 years, but that was our first really bad. Now you do have some hot stories. You have a speech in Portland, Oregon. And finished early. I called up a local birder there, and I was asking him about some mundane bird like a great flycatcher or something. And he said, "You want to go see the great knot? It's down in Cruz Bay." Well, we were heading for the coast anyway. We weren't going down that far, but you know, why not? This is what I was done my speech. We had vacation time. So I get in the car, I drive over to speed limit. I do. We cut over the mountain. There's a big I don't know, detour type thing. I found this road on a map. It wasn't the best road, but it was a shortcut. I drive down to Goose Bay. We pull into the parking lot there, and I say the 3 words that the net loves to hear the most. Now, what you think? I see ghosts. There was ghosts. We get out of the car, and this guy looks at us. He doesn't know us from anywhere. And I haven't heard much go. I set my stove up, we looked at the bird, once, maybe 2 minutes max. We looked at this bird, and then they all flew. When I said all the sandpipers and shorebirds over there all flew. Apparently it was the tide coming in, and they all went to another place, and the great knot was never seen again. So if I hadn't gotten out of one early, if I hadn't called the right guy, if I hadn't drove over the speed limit, if I hadn't found the shortcut, etc., we would not have great knot on our life list. That's a pretty lucky story. We're very cool in British Columbia. I had to give a speech in Seattle. We went up to visit one of my Stanford friends that lived in British Columbia, and we're out at some pond looking at some birds there, and this bird goes by at Mach 2. And we got to look at it, but a bad look at it. And we said, now, it wasn't a peregrine, it wasn't a hawk, wasn't a goose, a dog, you know, we eliminated everything, every bird in the boat we eliminated except gerfalcon. So we decided that this was absolutely a gerfalcon. And this is when we invented our quality sighting. If you see a bird right there, full look, male, you give it a 5 sighting. This was a 1 sighting. And anytime you had a 1 sighting of a bird, you wanted to see it again to get a better look. Well, it was many years later when we saw one person on a telephone pole in Oregon, and we got off our 1 sighting list. But sometimes you see a white bird that's not all that satisfying, you do your best. Now, birds are science. You all know that Christmas bird counts are great for science, etc. We went out to Lake Verde, which is way out of West Texas, north of Fort Davis, and we saw a yellow-billed loon. I think it was the first Texas record, actually. And then, well, great, got the yellow-billed loon, we go around Texas, we go do other things, we come back to lunch, and we're on the other side of Lake Verde, and here's this bird belly up in the water. And it turns out it's the yellow-billed, floating up to the edge. I managed to get it out of the water, rolled it down to Fort Davis, gave it to a guy who's a professor at Texas A&M, and it's now the only, I'm sure it's still the only yellow-billed loon skin ever found in Texas. So kind of a neat story there. Now, sometimes you don't know how lucky you are. We did our first trip out to Southern California. We see those woodpecker and various other things. We drive up to the San Bernardino Mountains, and we see a couple of quail under a bush, we stop the car, we get out, we put our scope on it. Mountain quail, we're up at pretty high elevation there, gorgeous birds just kind of walking under a bush. It was my 500th ABA boat. Great. We go down to Lawrence goldfinch, and which we didn't find. But on a telephone pole or a tree, I forget which, with a gorgeous white-headed woodpecker, very close, very easy to see. It was the next 500 bird. Remember the divorce bird? I was one bird ahead for days. And so we got to look at it in an hour each other, and this was great. What we didn't know at the time was it was going to be almost 20 years later before we ever saw another mountain quail or another white-headed woodpecker after we had moved up to Oregon. So enjoy that you see, because you may take a while to see another one. Now this is the weirdest story I have. We are in far west Colorado, near Grand Junction, and we're looking at a lane guide. We're lane guides. We're walking out this dusty, dirty desert trail looking for chukar. We never found a chukar. We had a terrible day. We saw a few rock wrens. That was it. We come back to the parking lot, and there are gnat catchers in the parking lot. So I look at the gnat catchers, and they got black under their tail, and we're in the desert, and we have seen black-tailed gnat catchers in West Texas many times. So, or a few times at that point. And so they're obviously black-tailed gnat catchers. And I looks out, and we saw 2 or 3 bears. We get in the car, we're driving back toward Denver. I had to give a speech somewhere, like asked for the next day. And then looks at the board book and says, ooh, black-tailed gnat catchers aren't supposed to be within 500 miles of Colorado. So I called Colorado, leave a message, we're from Texas, we've seen black-tailed gnat catchers. These gnat catchers had black under their tails, where we saw them, etc. This guy calls me back. I cannot make this up. This is Dr. So-and-so. I am the head of the Verde Valley in Denver. Please call me back immediately at this number. They tell you I'm in surgery, you tell me, yeah. I wish I had that message. I called him on that, give him the information. He calls the bird in Grand Junction. The Grand Junction birder goes out there to right where we are, finds the gnat catchers, photographs them. He sent me the photographs. They have black under their tails. We are heroes. The Denver hires them. They have Greyhound bus. 20 or 50 birders for that. They all see the man, and then some expert or experts, I thought it was experts at the time, decided that these were aberrant blue-gray gnat catchers that have to have black on the tail. They're on the 30 years ago, and I still don't understand that story. And I still have the pictures, and I remember that. I can tell you a story about over these next 30 years, and none of them would be as weird as this story was. There we go. So now I've been burning a couple of years, and as you could say, I have a big mouth, I'm bold, and a military leader, and they decided I could lead a field trip to Prescott Audubon, go out and look for golden cheek warblers. Well, I knew where golden cheek warblers were. They're arriving in Austin between the 5th and the 10th of March. So I'm sure this was about the 10th of March. I go out there, I've got like 10 people standing in front of me, and I'm trying to be a confident leader. And this says, Rich, do we have a chance of seeing hummingbirds today? Now, my nanosecond thought said, haven't seen any in my yard. It's only, this is probably way too early. So I confidently said, no, we're not going to see hummingbirds today. It's way too early. At which point, a black-shirt male hummingbird would have been and landed on the branch like 8 and everything, and I 5 minutes. I did find them golden cheek warblers, but I did not call my first field trip lead a success. So then, in May of 1992, sort of 3 years after we started burning, we spent this is probably dumb, but it worked out okay. We spent a life savings going on a wing strip to Alaska. And this is where I learned the difference between super burner, great burner, good burner, and me. Now, we saw very well. We're standing on St. Lawrence Island, Gamble on St. Lawrence Island in the Bering Strait, and on a clear day, you can see tomorrow. I love that statement. It's actually true.
Yeah.
You can actually see Russia from Gamble Island, looking across the international date line, and so you can actually see tomorrow. And we're seeing more puffins and tufted puffins, we've got Yavapai, and we've got parakeet orphans and various orphans, and we've got spectacular riders. Yes, I know, it's spectacular riders. We call it a spectacular rider. And young riders and all kinds of great stuff. And like birds on a trip. But here's why I learned how to tell the difference between the great birders and not. John Dunn, you don't know who John Dunn is, he is super birder. By far super birder. He yells, and he points at the sky. He's looking at binoculars, he points at the sky. Everybody looks up. I'm sorry. Now, to me, I'm told God. I don't even know. They haven't even arms for it. But he said, I'm not like this. No, it wasn't. Now, look at the flying toward us. About 10 or 20 seconds later, the Kajakians were great birders, not super good great birders. They are conclude, and I see this. Now, that's a bummer. I live in dots, flying squirrels, airplanes, UFOs. I leave that alone. This could be a goose. This could be anything. At least it's a bird. 10 or 20 seconds later, the good birders in the group yell Arctic loon. And I see that. Now that's a loon. Now it's probably on my, if this bird had left right there, it probably would have been on my rifle. But we have seen red-throated loons. We've seen Pacific loons, we've seen common loons, and I can't tell the difference to these. Finally, 20 seconds later or so, this bird flies right over in front of us, and the net and I together in synchrony yell, they're 10 yards down the beach looking at something else, because that was both some 20 seconds ago. Are you kidding me? So that's where I learned the difference. If you put a bird in front of me, and I can see it well and see it for a significant amount of time, I can probably identify that bird. With John Dunn, 5 miles per nanosecond rolling east. That's the difference between super birder and me. So now I'll end with our best story. We did a winter trip to visit family in New York, and we go to Cape Cod and the Massachusetts coast. And we really did see a black duck. I did. And we saw a that ice and dog. And I might digress to say, has nothing to do with this talk, but I am really mad that their skull no longer exists, and I want their skull back. That's what we're doing. We thought there was a rain available in one spot. We went to see that. Nice and easy. We actually saw a dove key in the water off Cape Cod. That was pretty exciting. Then we go to this park in Rhode Island. This is our last day, our last afternoon of the last day, the last stop. We were there because pine growth speeds were supposed to be possible. We in this park, it's cold, it's dreary, it's got snow on the ground, it's miserable, and there's no birds at all. None. But finally, we go to the end of this little road and we find a woodpecker. And this woodpecker, we don't know this woodpecker. And we were about 3 years beside. And this bird is just freezing on a tree. He's not moving much at all. He turns his head a little bit. He's not moving. So we get the scope out of the car, put the scope on the bird, get good looks at it, look at the book, have all the time we need, decide it's an northern free-toed woodpecker. Now we're good at this by now. We look in the book and it's clearly not supposed to be anywhere in Rhode Island. Uh-oh, here we go again. So then it says, let's see if it has 3 toes. Because the other woodpeckers have 4 toes. So we get the scope around and put scope on the bird. On its feet, we zoom in a little bit. Sure enough, it's got 3 toes on the left. And one of them said, is it possible that a predator ate that toe? Maybe it forms that tall color off. Okay, we do a line all over the other side. Send someone to see his right foot and throw it on the field where you come back. So we want to run out there. I went to Texas, we got the door on this little road, right up the street at the end, in this little park, etc. And we go home, go back to the family, we fly home to Texas, and we got in our license, and all is great. About a month later, I get a call from this lady in Rhode Island. Are you the Rich Armstrong that reported the three-toed woodpecker in Rhode Island? Yes, I am. Would you like to know? I will call her and say the rest of the story. I say, yes, I would. She said, the very next day, one of the best birders in Rhode Island goes out to the park and finds a washed out hairy woodpecker. Looks pretty similar, pretty close, washed out hairy woodpecker. She said, for the next week, the Prescott town, anyone who was identified, oh, you must be woodpecker. A bird with wrong name accent, you must be from Texas. Anybody who made any mistake, you must be from Texas. She said the Texas jokes were just flowing like crazy. Then about 7 days later, a guy is out there in that park just birding, I guess. He finds the three-toed woodpecker in the same exact tree where we saw it.
Yeah.
He photographs it, he calls everybody in Rhode Island, and the bird stayed for another couple of weeks, and it was seen by everyone. And so we went from here on. Oh, we heard about that. We went from here on the to go and thinking it was misidentified, to hero finding it again. I actually wrote that up from hero to hero for Verde Magazine way back in the day. It was published, I think, Winging It actually, and that turned out to be a great story. So whether you are a great birder, a good birder, a chump birder, or a new birder, get out there and bird, because you might be the next, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. Thank you very much. Everyone? Questions?
Tell them what your yard list is.
Our yard list in Sedona. Now remember, in Sedona, we bought a yard and a house came with it. And I'm very serious about that. Our yard list in Sedona is 174. That's birds in the yard, Baltimore Oriole, which Jeanette saw and I didn't, even though I was there. Blue-throated hummingbird, only Yavapai County record blue-throated hummingbird. Pictures have been submitted to AZFO for confirmation of all that. We've had a northern twin sighting for 7 days once, many years ago. The late Dina Greenwood came and saw that bird. We had a common grackle for an entire day. So we've never had a mockingbird or a gnatcatcher. Those are the two birds that are the biggest misses. Somebody else. I hope I brought back memories of when you.
I just have a comment. Rich led a trip for us to the Sedona Wetlands. If you've never, have you ever gone to Sedona Wetlands for birds? You can come. You can get us here on the platform that wonderful stand. You want to see from the other side, look at the platform. Go with Rich, it's great, but we have what, 56 birds that day?
No, 65.
6, you're right.
Whoa.
So if you have a time. Yeah.
The Sedona Wetlands is, for size-wise, is probably the best birding spot, maybe in all of Yavapai County. It's not very big, has 269 species recorded. Considerably smaller than the Bowling Ponds, Fish Hatchery area, or Dead Horse, or Watson Lake and all its, or even Willow Lake in the land area.
Thank you. Great trip.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.